I got a bit distracted, but I'm not quite done with Lisa Eldridge's Sorcery Vega palettes quite yet. So I'm doing another look featuring both palettes today, starting off with my eyeshadow base as usual, the 24 eye base from MAC. Going to do my brows. I may not be extremely chatty this morning because I am a little bit tired. We had a fabulous weekend, super relaxed. We slept in, you know, and after being, you know, the whole family being sick for a week, it was actually quite nice to yesterday finally feel like, you know, rested and energetic. But unfortunately, the child still has a bit of a cough, which manifests, of course, conveniently mostly during the night. Is this really, you know, when you're sick and you have that really unpleasant dry cough, which always starts bugging you as soon as you lay down. That's what's happening, and we did get him a little cough syrup, taking Auric Glow Last, to help with the dry cough so that it becomes more of that like wet cough, which is, you know, a lot easier. But until we get to that point, he's going to have a couple of restless, unpleasant nights, and I'm afraid so are we. But anyway, I'm going to have I think a relatively quiet work week ahead, gearing up towards the holiday season. I'm taking a week off, Hubs is taking a bit of time off, and next week I'm mostly planning to work from home because I usually fill in my lab journal every year. Like I take a week to just work on my lab journal. I am absolutely terrible at keeping like my official lab journal up. I have like my notebook, which is my, you know, more sacred than my passport, because I write everything in there in terms of what I do with my experiments and when and what and, you know, the whole thing. But keeping my actual like electronic lab journal up to date, I'm absolutely terrible at, and I figured the last couple of years that it works really well for me to just take some time off only dedicated for that. So the last couple of years I've basically been taking the whole week before the Christmas holidays off. Well, not off, but just working from home on my lab journal, and it has worked really well for me because I feel like every year at the end of the year I do have the feeling that my lab journal is now completely up to date. Taking my NARS Light Reflecting Foundation, and I'm not the kind of person that will go and write down every little single experiment that I've done, especially, you know, things that didn't quite work for whatever stupid reason. I'm not going to write that down because nobody got anything on that. I will usually just, you know, summarize what I have done that has worked, put down the results, that kind of thing, so that it's clear what I did, how I did it, and what the result was. And this year, I have to say, it should be fine to be done in a relatively like short time frame, because I've done things, but I haven't really done super much, because the second part of the year, especially after the summer holidays, I was quite focused on writing that manuscript that I mentioned. And, you know, because of that, I didn't really dare to begin anything a bit more time consuming. So I've done like small things here and there, but I haven't done anything like super major. Taking my Gucci powder now, and I also think it would be rather healthy for me to take some actual days off. So I'm planning, I have my best intentions to take coming Friday off, just to, you know, have a bit more of a relaxed week, because the last couple of weeks have been kind of on like super high speed, super high gear, and I feel quite like it's quite taxing. At some point you just really need to slow down, otherwise you're just ineffective because you're so tired. And I actually still have plenty of days off that I can take. I'm going to take this beautiful new item that I have in my collection, the bronzer brick from Victoria Beckham, which is just so beautiful. And I'm kind of going to mix the two shades together actually for bronzer slash contour, because we're using the Vega palette. Well, not the Vega palette, we're using the Vega palette, but we are taking the blue shade from the Sorcery palette. I just feel like that shade would work so beautifully with the Vega palette, so I kind of consider it a part of the Vega palette, although it is not. So it is a somewhat more, you know, cool toned look. I want to go for something a little bit more neutral toned, almost cool toned for my bronzer. What do we think about the blush from Lisa Eldridge? I kind of always forget that I own this blush. This is Dante's Dream, because the packaging broke off. I depotted it. It's now in this container, and I pretty much always glaze over it when I'm going through my blush drawer. So I am thinking if it's maybe You know what, it may not be the most appropriate color for this look, but I'm going to give it a try anyway, because I do want to get some use out of this blush before it dries out in this packaging. Luckily this closes quite tightly, so I'm not too worried about it drying out on the short term, but I am worried about it drying out at some point. So I would like to make as much use out of it as possible in the meantime. I just put a little bit here on the back of my hand. I think Lisa is going to be re-releasing these blushes next year in more optimal packaging. I'm very curious what kind of packaging solution she has figured out. But yeah, other than that, the blushes are quite lovely. For highlighter, I'm going to take Venusian Nude from Pat McGrath, and I wanted to mention this highlighter again because I think some of you are still struggling with exactly how to use this highlighter to avoid it looking glittery. And I'm not really doing anything much more special than buffing it really well into my skin, but I just want to show you how I use it. So I will apply it onto my skin, and then I will go with my brush and like really work it onto my cheekbone just as much as possible, have those silver sparkles like melt into your skin. And what will help with that even further is in a little bit when I set my face makeup with a little bit of Fix Plus from MAC, it will really melt those glitters with the rest of my skin. But I think the real answer is here. First of all, you need to be okay with glitter on your cheeks, because if you look up close, you are going to see those glitter particles. But there are definitely ways to not have glitter rain down your face when you're applying this highlighter. I just think you need a dense brush, and you really need to buff. You cannot apply this with something that is too stiff or too loosely packed. That will really cause the glitter particles to fly everywhere. I'm going to take Fix Plus now and my little sponge. I usually use the sponge in order to apply my Fix Plus. I think you're going to see a little bit of those glitters in there. I just see a little bit of sparkle worked in with the rest of my face makeup, but nothing that like personally really bothers me. And like I said, for today's look, we're going back into both Vega and Sorcery. And the first shade I'm going to take is going to be from the Vega palette, and it's going to be this really light shade right here on this really old Zoeva blending brush. Let's see how that goes. I'm actually not sure that I'm keeping or decluttering this brush, so let's give it a go. And this shade, because it basically is very close to being almost like a skin tone shade, it just slightly contours. I'm going to use it as a bit of like a blending out shade for later on when I apply the blue shade. I don't think you necessarily even need a blending out shade, but I think it just works so much more seamlessly if you have something a little bit to help out the darker shade blend out. I'm now going to take this gorgeous black shade, the shade Lamp Black, and apply this the way I usually like to apply shades like this, which is here a little bit in like a winged out shape, and also very close to the lashes to create a bit of definition there. I think that really helps to, I don't know, make your lashes appear thicker and to give everything a bit more of a smoked out, sultry appearance. And you can work that shade a little bit here like this to slightly smudge it out and blend it out. It's just such a pleasure to work with this black shade. Okay, and I'm going to take a more flat shader type of brush, such as this one. This is the Builder Pro from Sonny G, and I'm going to go into this royal blue shade here, and I'm going to start packing that on the lid, basically over top of the whole lid, because I want to go for somewhat of like a blue smoky eye, but we are going to play a bit around with something sparkly in the center of the lids. I'm going to use this same brush to just lightly give a blend here, but I am going to go with the blending brush to really fluff that crease. And it's always easier to apply a little bit of these shades first with a brush, do all of your blending, and then if you want to pack more pigment, go in and either like spritz your blush and either spritz your brush or apply the shade with your fingers or over a glitter glue. What am I going to do now? I'm going to, I think, try to pack a bit more of that blue shade just using my fingers, but not too much because it blends away kind of into like almost like a satin matte. But I want to pack just a bit more punch of blue here onto the lids, and then I'm going to go in with something a little bit more sparkly and maybe even spritz my brush for a bit more oomph. I'm truly getting the feeling that, to me, the real like strength of these palettes and where they really excel and shine above other things is the formula of those like velvet and whatever she calls them, mattes. Like her matte formula truly is outstanding, but the metallics and the shimmers are, I don't think, anything particularly impressive. Although I think certain shades in there, like certain undertones of shades in there, are also quite unique. I now want to have a little bit of this shade, this toppery type shade, over top of this blue, because I want to give it a bit of like a metallic sheen. But because I didn't apply any sort of like glitter glue or anything, I want this to have a bit more like a wet effect on it. I am going to spritz my brush with a bit of Fix Plus here. And let's see what that does, shall we? I'm going to just pack it right here and blend it over top of the blue. And now I'm going to just really work those two shades together. I think it would also be very cool to put a bit of that really sparkly shade from the Sorcery palette over top of this blue, but I'm going for a slightly less colorful situation today, so that's why I'm not going to do that. I'm also going to take that same shade and apply it into my inner corners. Okay, on my lower lash line, I'm actually going to pop the grayish blue right here. Just, you know, play around a little bit with those tones of blue. Alright, so this is the final look. It would pair completely perfectly with Sorcery from Lisa Eldridge, but I kind of wanted to take this new lipstick that I have from Victoria Beckham in the shade Twist out for a spin, because I wore it for literally like half an hour last week when I tested it out, and I really want to test out the formula out and about. I have to say, one thing I'm noticing about these lipsticks from Victoria Beckham is a lot of them look different on the website, but I've also like started watching people's videos to see how they look like swatched on the lips, and I feel like the thing with these is that they're so gently pigmented that a bunch of them are probably going to end up looking very similar on your lips, because of how sheer the base pigment is, they probably are going to just melt with whatever your like lip color is and look like my lips but better. So I kind of have the feeling that unless you're choosing a color that is a bit more like pigmented, you're going to end up with the same color on your lips. So I think you should be really careful with these when you're choosing a color, and don't buy multiples. Few quick concluding words about the blue eyeshadow from the Sorcery palette. For me, this is absolutely the most disappointing eyeshadow in here, and almost, I don't want to say that it's a dud, because I think it's more a matter of unmet expectations than anything else. Because the thing is, if you look at it in the pan, you think this is going to be quite metallic and there's going to be a bit more going on when you put it on your lids. But as soon as you start blending it out, you really feel that strong matte base coming through. So to me, this shade is more of like your classic satin matte than it really is a metallic. Maybe if you spritz your brush or you apply it over a glitter glue, it's going to look much more impressive. But today, the way I applied it, I felt like it was probably the most disappointing out of all the shades that I tried in here. I am not impressed by this shade. This is not going to be one of my favorite eyeshadows in these palettes, but that's just me. Anywho, I hope that you enjoyed this little video. Let me know what you thought about this look. Have you already tried the blue in your sorcery eyeshadow palette? What do you think about it? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!